Scarface, speak on it.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? We do we have a Caucasian man here?
Well, I'm Italian. I'm Southern Italian and from
Same.
New York, so it's a little different.
I know. It's still Caucasian, but y'all still got that Moorish blood. Are you Sicilian or what part of it?
Nobliadan, Sicilian, yeah. But I'm also from New York City. It's a whole different. New York City is a whole culture in and of itself.
Well, no
You
doubt.
know, so if you don't know, I'll school you on that.
No
You
doubt.
know, I don't even know where you're from,
Well,
to
so
be honest.
what's
But
on
the
your what's on your mind?
but definitely don't just group me in with Caucasian, bro. Southern Italians had it very rough. They were called the N word. They were lynched. You sound like you know a lot about history, so
Yeah, I know that. I
you
know that
should
they
you
called
should.
you guineas. They called you guineas when you
They
came over.
called us the N word too.
I know, and
They
guinea
called
is
us
a word for African. So
exactly. Thank you,
I
thank
know.
you.
But yeah,
100%. Where are you from, by the way? I'm curious. Where are you from?
but you mentioned the lynching. As far as being lynched, you guys got paid for that. They gave y'all reparations, and they had to pay off Italy. So they had to apologize to the Italian government after they lynched the Italians. I think that was down in Louisiana, where they did
What year was that?
sometime in the 1800s. They did a mass lynching of a lot of Italians because the
Well, the
Italian.
mass lynching was around 1891,
Right,
if I'm
right,
not mistaken.
right. It was in 1800s, like I said, 1800s, and it was down in
I'm talking about the reparations. When did the reparations come?
that I'm not sure, but I know it came pretty soon because they had to apologize to the Italian government and they had to pay the family, the people who were lynched. So, but
Right,
anyway, what's on
right.
your mind? What's
Well,
going on?
they fucked the Italians anyway in 1924 with the Immigration Act that basically stopped all immigration from southern Italy at that time.
Yeah, but they start letting you be white around that time too, around 19.
No, it's really after World War II. It was
Right, right,
after
right.
the Italians fought in World War II that they started doing that.
Yeah, they start letting
Um,
you be
but
classified.
there were also guys that started getting prominent in the 1930s that were encouraging Italian Americans to assimilate and But there's a lot of actually you were kind of leading into where I'm going with this, which is that these Italian Americans also paved a lot of the ways for Black Americans.
Not
Uh,
really. Go ahead.
well, you had the anarchists as early as 1901 that were using violence against oppressors and tyrants. There's a lot of different ways. There was Vito. What the fuck was his name again? Mark Cantonio, who was, ran, most of the neighborhoods in New York that were Italian, that are black now, or used to be Italian.
Well, the
And
thing is, yeah, but the thing is, the Italians would actually, when they commit crimes, they would oftentimes hide in black neighborhoods. They would hide from the authorities, especially during the 1930s, when they had that big crime wave with, Babyface Nelson, Dillinger, and that whole crime wave. Italians and a lot of them would hide. The mafia would hide in black neighborhoods. So I wouldn't say they did anything
I don't
actually.
know. Yeah, I'd have to get some kind of um, resource on that. Yeah, I'd never heard about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
but
know
I wouldn't
anything
say
about.
they actually helped us because they came over and
Well,
benefited
sure. I
from.
mean, look up Vito Marcantonio.
I understand, I know,
He's
but
the guy that was running Harlem in the 1930s. He was a very early civil rights activist. He, pushed for a lot of that. I mean, if it wasn't for the Italian Americans are the ones that got all the labor laws passed.
well, that
Before
was
the labor laws, there was excuse me, horrific abuse of all the Americans that were working during the Industrial Revolution. When the factories went up, they were losing 10% of their workforce a week to death. They were losing 10%. They had children working. It was, nobody gave a fuck. They had them working 18, 20 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. So the Italians fought for the labor laws
but that
that
wasn't for
black
black.
Americans benefited from.
But that wasn't for black people though. Yeah,
Well,
we were
black
still segregated.
Americans benefited
We
from
were,
it,
no, but
though.
we benefited from our own labor though as foundational black Americans. We benefited from our own labor. We built the country, so we benefited from our own labor.
Well, you
So
didn't build the cities. The
yeah,
Italians built the cities, and
and
the
we
Irish, and all the cities that black Americans migrated to by choice in the early 1900s. They did the same thing that you're saying that
sir,
the
sir,
African immigrants are doing.
sir, if the Italians did that, why didn't they build the shit in Italy?
They did. It was the
No,
Roman
they did.
Empire. What are you talking
No, they,
about?
oh,
They
was,
built a
sir,
million
well,
things in
about
Italy.
a zillion years ago, sir, and it's still raggedy now. The Roman ruins are still
Well,
ruined.
they built the Bank
Sir,
of America,
sir, they
right?
did.
They were the
Yeah,
first,
out in California, I know that.
but that was
But
the first bank that actually provided money to people that
sir,
were
but
poor.
why didn't they do all that in Italy?
We're talking about America right now. I don't
No,
care
no.
about
If they
Italy.
did,
I'm
no, no. If
talking
they
about
did all that,
America.
so why was Italy broke, poor, and funky?
We're talking about America right
But we're
now.
talking. But if you
I'm
say
not.
you
I
did,
don't care about
if you
Italy. I don't know why you're
uh,
even
but if
bringing Italy
you said
up.
but if you the one who said the Italians did all this stuff,
Italian Americans. Italian
but
Americans.
why
I'm
didn't they
talking
do that
about.
back?
Who cares? What I'm talking
I
about is
care.
how they helped black. They paved the way for black
They didn't
Americans
pay a
here.
damn thing for Black Americans. They came over and benefited from the free labor and wealth generated by Black
No,
Americans.
no, 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 no. The
Yes,
black
they
Americans moved to where the Italians and the Irish
stop,
lived, and they took
stop.
their jobs and they took
Where
their
did
free
Black people
housing, and while they were fighting in World War I.
stop it? With family, we
What do you mean
built this
stop
country.
it? This is factual. This is
This, sir,
factual.
you're revising history. Foundational Black Americans built a nation that immigrants from
Built what nation? They were in
over
two,
to.
three states. What are you
So
talking? They were mostly in Virginia. What are
stop.
you talking about?
What are
The
you?
North always outperformed the South.
Stop it.
If
The
it
North.
wasn't for the North, you would still be in slavery. What are you talking
Stop.
about?
How so? Because now you're
Because
trolling.
the
Now,
North won the war. What are you
stop.
talking about,
The
bro?
North, the North won the war because foundational Black Americans started fighting for the Union because the Union was losing. Go ahead. Go ahead. Because
Say
now
that
I'm
again. I didn't hear the
okay.
last thing you said.
Yeah, because what I'm not going to let you do is start trolling because you're trying to ramp up some trolling. So
I'm
the
not trolling
Union,
at all. This is all
stop,
fact, bro.
stop. The Union was losing the Civil War. The Confederates were beating the shit out of the Union. The only reason the Union won is because they started to recruit Black soldiers, sir. So it was
That's not
foundational.
true.
It's
That's not true.
100% true. Not only
The
that,
North
we
always had more money than the.
stop. Not only that, Black people down in Florida were freeing themselves. They were destroying the plantations down in Florida, the Black Seminoles. So Black people were not only fighting in the South, they were fighting for the Union. So Black people were active in the freeing of themselves. So let's get history clear. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Scarface. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, you had me muted.
Yes,
I didn't say that there was no participation from Black Americans, but to act like Black Americans, there was way more people, that, quote unquote, white people in the North that were fighting that war, and it was the generals, it was the innovation with
it was
how to
Black.
fight battles, it was the strategies, it was the
It was Black
technology that was
people.
created by white people
It was
that
Black.
allowed us to win the war, and we fought for you. 600,000 people
God.
died.
You didn't fight for foundational Black Americans, sir. That wasn't a war for foundational Black Americans. The freeing of Black people came later on, but that wasn't the purpose of the Civil War. And you know this, sir. Let's be very clear. Every white person knows this.
That's
You know
not true. You
it.
think all white? I don't even understand why you refer to white as it's one thing. White's not unified in this country.
Yes, it
It,
is.
it's
Yes,
not unified at all. I don't
yes,
know how you could say that. If
yes.
you look at the, if you want to take the
Now let's
same
get back.
logic that you,
Oh, no, no. You're not going to babble here, sir. Let's go back into history. You're talking about New York had more money. The North benefited from slavery too. The slave trade, a lot of it started really up there in Massachusetts. The financial sector of it. New York had slavery, sir. The entire nation benefited from foundational Black Americans' free labor. Is that true or not true, sir?
uh, I'm sure there's truth to that. I'm sure there's truth to that. But you also, it's a symbiotic relationship.
No, it's not.
That's why at the end of the day, after the Civil War, the freed slaves were offered to go back to Africa, and they chose
Actually,
to stay.
okay, but we
So,
from
and then they migrated to where they were.
we weren't from Africa. Do you understand that? Let me say that again. Most of us were not from Africa. Do you understand that?
I've heard your point. I've heard you say the whole 3% thing,
Yes.
but that's irrelevant. The point is
Not
that
irrelevant.
statistic. No, that statistic means
It's not irrelevant. Most of us were not from Africa. Only 3% of the people who came from Africa came here. Most of us were indigenous to this land. That's why we didn't leave. That's why we didn't want to go to a foreign land. Does that make sense, sir? Mr. Scarface, does that make sense?
when they say 3%, they mean the other 97% went to Brazil and the Caribbean.
Yes.
Not that only 3% of the slaves that were in
Yeah.
America were from Africa. I don't
Sir,
understand what you're trying to
what
say.
what what do you mean you don't understand? Well,
They have all the numbers. It started off in 1619, right? When you had 10 something people here and 20, and then it became
there were
eventually, there was a total of 300,000 slaves that were brought here, and they became 4 million by the Civil War. That's the facts.
there were already black people here before 1619. That's documented by
Yeah,
European. They,
tiny amount, not
lot
anything that you're talking about.
there were lots of people over here, all over.
And it was tiny. So what? There was
It
all types
doesn't.
of people there. There was Italians there too. There was, so I'm just, there were
There's
Mexicans
also,
there. There were Native
but,
Americans
but
there, but they weren't there in large numbers.
there was no such thing as a Mexican at the
So there
time.
was no transatlantic slave trade. That's what you're saying.
Sir, stop gaslighting.
I'm not gaslighting. I mean, I don't understand what you're
Sir,
trying to make it like that
you're,
there was
make,
nobody brought here.
you're making up straw man arguments, sir.
Straw
I'm,
man argument for what?
there were black people here thousands of years before the white supremacists came.
But there were also people that chose after the Civil War to go back to Africa in
That,
the, what was it, Liberia? That they were
sir,
going to form some kind of a,
only, only a handful of people went to Liberia. Most of us didn't go because we knew we were not from there, sir. The problem is, foundational black Americans built this country, and the white supremacists tried to do it by themselves, and they all failed.
it's a, you'd have to really prove that. As you're just saying something. I mean, the Union's
I,
advantages had to do with their enlarged
sir,
industrial power and the political skills of its
sir,
leaders.
do you understand? Before 1619, they tried to set up other European colonies in North America. Are you aware of that?
Before 1619, sure.
Yes. Do you know which ones they are? I know. I want to
Well,
see if you know.
there was Spain. There was the Portuguese were here before 1619.
And yes, they were. They came 1526. They had San Miguel del Guadape over in South Carolina, and they failed.
Right. And guess who was here in 1492? Columbus. And what the hell was his name? The one that we named America after? The
Amerigo,
Italians?
Amerigo, Amerigo Vespucci.
There you go.
And do you know the name Amerigo? That's not his real name. He named himself after a black tribe down in Panama.
Well, there you go. Let's bring the Italians and the blacks together. Let's do it.
Okay. So, sir, the you're welcome. For us, foundational Black Americans, helping to bring a lane for you to come over and your family to come over from Italy to survive over here and thrive
You
among.
had nothing to do with
Yes, I.
the cities. We
Yes,
made the cities for you. I don't know what you're talking about.
sir. You couldn't
We
even.
paved the way for you. You
You
all moved to the
you
cities. You had
could,
to flee the South because they were
sir,
gonna fucking run you over. So
sir.
you came to the cities and you took jobs from the Irish. You took jobs from the Italians. We paved the way for you.
Sir. You couldn't even pave the way for yourself in Italy. That's why you got on a boat with $3, and they called you wops because you didn't even have paperwork. This is just a guinea without papers, and they called you wops. You didn't even have paperwork. Y'all hopped on anything that was floating to get over here, sir. You couldn't even pave the way for your damn self. How you gonna pave the way for us?
I mean, you're going to
Oh,
deny the influence of
yeah,
Italian Americans in this country.
yes. You didn't
That's
do
what
a
you're
damn.
trying to tell me right
You
now.
didn't do a damn thing for us.
Half of black culture right now has.
Stop it. But flood our communities with drugs. If we want to go there, you flooded black areas with drugs and then stole the number running game. It was black people who created the numbers game that the Italian mafia latched on to get money. Who influenced who, sir?
The black people didn't even come to New York City
Black,
till
it
1915
was
for the
black
first time.
people. It
No,
was
they took from the Italians.
black
Prohibition
people.
was.
Stop. Black people were in New York in the 1600s, documented. Black people have been in New York from the very beginning, sir. You're just spewing troll nonsense. Black people were always in New York. Black people been in New York, and the mafia took the numbers game from foundational black Americans. The Jones brothers out of Chicago, Bumpy Johnson, all of these people, sir, you really need to understand.
Listen, if you go look at pictures of New York City in 1900s, it's all white faces, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. Look at a
Because
census, look at images and pictures. It's all
I
white slums that were Irish and Italian. There
I
were no labor laws. under the
Sir,
Industrial
this
Revolution, and
country was
those labor laws were made by Italian Americans, my friend.
dead.
So if you can't respect that, then you're disrespecting. I think it's time the Italians need to come back together, to be honest, in this country and form a group, because I can see that that's the only way right now that people are actually getting respect. You got to come in numbers. And if I'm just me right now. This is what you do for a living. I'm just up late on whatever night it is. You know what I mean? Let me start getting all the Italian Americans. The American government never spent more money than to lock up Italian Americans, not black people, Italian Americans. They spent $200 million to dismantle the mafia. So don't start talking to me about what goes on.
Then why should they have not dismantled organized crime, sir?
Why are you fighting for criminals that are black to not go to jail?
What criminals have I fought for, sir?
So you're okay with black criminals going to jail?
Sir, your racist trolling is running out.
I'm
So
not trolling at all. Don't try
now,
to turn me into
sir,
a troll. Everything I'm saying is
now your racist white supremacist trolling is coming all the way out because you failed. You come from a failed culture in Italy. Y'all were failing in Italy. You came over here to the country foundation of Black Americans built. And you're talking about some dam you built New York, and the ruins of Rome are still over there in Rome. Y'all didn't even clean Rome up. It's still in ruins. Why don't you fix the ruins of Rome?
it's funny how you think one thing is like for there's so many different pieces of everything.
Yeah, there's pieces of rubble all on the ground in Italy. I've been all over Italy. Y'all don't even fix the Tower of Pisa. Y'all didn't even fix that shit. It's still leaning.
Very
You
funny, very
talking about
funny.
you done built
Dude,
something?
why? Let me ask you a question. Why
Well,
did
you ain't asked me nothing. You talking about what you done built? Let me tell you something. Not only was it foundational Black Americans saving you, even before foundational Black Americans, you're Italian. It was the Moors who saved you too. It was the Black Moors who came over there and got you out of squalor. You were about to die over there. Y'all over there disease ridden. Y'all had the Black Plague, the Justinian Plague. There were dozens of plagues hitting over there. It was the Black Moors who came over there bringing alcohol and chemicals and things over there to clean that place up. So you doubly owe Black people a thank you.
how far are you going to go back to try
All
to
the way
make a
back.
point? I mean, come on.
All the way back. You owe
Let's
foundation.
get a little more relevant. Let's talk about right.
You owe foundational Black Americans, and you owe the Moors for saving you because y'all were dying off over there, especially Italy. Y'all were dying the hell off.
Okay, I think it's pretty obvious that the rappers are mostly the most influential Black
Who
Americans,
cares?
and they wear all Gucci and Italian designers. They took the word "yo" from Italians. They took the whole gangster image that Italians made cool. So it's like, let's talk about what's happening right now.
Okay, let's talk about what's
Let's
happening
talk
right
about
now.
how they've
The only
continued to be
no,
influenced by.
nobody's influenced by you. The only gangster that you have is that you're connected with law enforcement because of your whiteness. So you're not gangster. You've never been gangster. All the whole tough guy, yo, paisan talk. The only thing you had, the only advantage was your proximity to whiteness, your ability to be protected by your whiteness, which is a form of welfare. Whiteness and white supremacy is white supremacy is welfare for white people. That's what you benefited for. Now
White
either that
supremacists hate Italians. I don't know what you're talking about. They hate
you're right.
Italians. They hate Catholics. They hate
Stop it.
Jews.
Stop it.
What
You're
are
white.
you talking about?
Italians are not some other group. You're a
Yes,
white.
they are.
No,
They
you're not.
they were
Stop.
turned white, and there's still
Stop.
plenty of black people I
Stop.
know that consider
Stop.
Italians black.
Stop it.
So you
Y'all
never heard that?
you play the denial of whiteness game. When it's very convenient, y'all try to play this denial of whiteness. I'm not white, I'm Italian. I'm not white, I'm Spanish. I'm not white, I'm Irish. So y'all try to play this three-card Monte game when it's convenient. It's called temporary denial of whiteness. I talk about that in my book. That's an old white supremacist trick. Oh, I'm not white. I couldn't possibly be a white supremacist. Man, I'm Cherokee. Are you mixed with Cherokee too, buddy?
I didn't say I wasn't white. What I'm saying is there's a difference between people that became white and white supremacists. And the white supremacists don't like Catholics. They don't like Italians. They don't like Jews.
Every
They don't
single
like Jews more than they don't.
and every single one of you who have differences don't like black people. That's the commonality that you all have. So I don't give a damn what type of differences you have among family. All of you get on code against black people. So that's my concern. So you all are white enough. I don't give a damn what level of whiteness you are. Y'all all get together and get on the same anti-black page. So that's the problem that I have, sir. Are you here, Mr. Scarface?
I'm here. I'm here. As soon as I'm unmuted, I'll speak.
Yes, indeed.
Um, I
Because
mean, dude, I could make a documentary about how Italian Americans had helped Black Americans. You had Sinatra and Dean Martin that opened up doors for entertainment. You have the
stop.
Jews that opened up all kind of doors for Black platforms. Actually, the father of the jazz guitar is an Italian guy who used to play with Lonnie Johnson in the 1920s. There's so many stories I could get into with you, but we don't have time to get into all that. And, I haven't really prepared for all that.
Foundational black Americans created every single music genre over here, dude. Stop it. Just stop it.
There was no music, is what you're trying to tell me, before America, right? There was no classical
Foundation-
music. There was no drums that go all the way back to China.
the drums, the modern drums that people use now, the sit down drums, that was created by foundational black Americans,
The
sir.
drum goes back to China.
The sit down drum,
There's
sir.
a whole,
That
but
they use now,
percussion. It's all about percussion.
sir. That we there were drums in Africa that go back millions of years, sir.
So then, how come they're not making the music in Africa? Why'd they have to do it here?
They are making music in
They
Africa
didn't make the blues and jazz in Africa. They did it in America with
because
white people,
we're
with
found
white people, with Jews and
no,
Italians.
we're foundational black Americans. We made the music. Foundational black Americans, sir. We made that. Well, Italians didn't make no damn blues, R&B, and none of that stuff. Foundational black Americans made that, sir.
They did, but they did it here in America with
It,
other white people.
sir, this is a country we built. This is our country, sir. This is a foundational black American country. This is our homeland, sir. This is not your homeland. You're an immigrant. I'm not.
No, you migrated to the
I
cities. You're
migrate,
not from the cities. You were never from the cities. You
sir.
took you followed the
we,
lanes that
we founded many of the cities in this country, sir. Los Angeles was founded by black people. Buffalo was founded by black people. Chicago was founded by a black person. We settled many of these cities. Sir, you don't know history.
Chicago was a Haitian guy. I thought Haitians were immigrants.
Sir, that brother was one of our riders. He's still black. So we
Okay,
ride with
but he
brothers
was an
like
immigrant, wasn't he?
he's still black.
He was an immigrant guy.
He's black.
He was an. Let me tell you something. Immigrants
He's
make the
black.
flavor in this country.
You
Okay.
couldn't make the flavor in Italy, dude. If you make the flavor in the country, why didn't you make the flavor in Italy? Why are y'all sitting over there struggling in Italy right now, sir?
I don't know who you think's struggling. The
Your,
literally
your,
the
your family,
strongest
your,
mafias in the world
your
are
family.
all southern Italy. Calabria, Naples, and Sicily have the
So
strongest mafias in the.
So you have to hang your hat on criminality. That's the problem right there. If your claim to fame is being an organized criminal, that shows how degenerate your mindset is, and you're not qualified to maintain a civilized society, sir. That's why you had to flee and come over here among the foundational black Americans who are the moral compass of this country, sir.
No, we had to flee from oppression, from dictators. That's
Oh,
what we had to flee from.
sound like them
Yeah.
Nigerians. It's the government. Oh, the government, nigga. The government.
Listen, Black Americans
The
fled too. They fled the
government.
South,
The
Tariq. Stop
government.
lying to yourself. You fled the South
Stop it.
because you were getting fucking ran over,
We
guy.
fled the
You
South. This is
couldn't
our
fucking
country.
survive over there.
Dude, this is still our country. What do you mean we fled the South? And let's be very clear. There were black people getting lynched in the North too. Yeah, we were getting lynched. We were getting lynched, dude. They were murdering us with impunity. So yeah, we're gonna go to the next place so we don't get killed, and we're less than 12% of the population at the time. We're getting killed. People were waging warfare on foundational black Americans. But we still said, hey, we're gonna still fight back in many cases, which we did. We still chose to fight back. We didn't leave the country. You talking like the South is a different country. This is still a country we pay taxes in, buddy. We didn't immigrate nowhere. talking about fleeing the South. That's not immigrating to another place. We're still in the same landmass where our taxes are circulating. You got y'all asses up out of Italy and bounced and left that shit behind and came on over here eating off us, didn't you?
No, we
Yes.
started coming here in the 1880s, so it was right after slavery was
Yeah,
over, and the cities weren't even
and
built yet.
yeah, dude, y'all was still classified as Sicilians because Italy didn't even become a nation state until around that time too. So, dude, you knew booty, as we say. You one of these brand new niggas,
Oh God, please! Like I said, you came to our cities that we built and that we paved ways for you.
dude. How
That's
how
a
what
fact.
how is
That's
an
a fact.
immigrant gonna claim a city in a country that
But that's what happened.
to?
Who created who?
We've been in these cities. We were already in these cities, dude. You trying to rewrite history? We were already. What city weren't we in? We were in New York. What are you
So
talking
there's
about?
no such thing as the Great Migration,
We
right?
were in New York.
What's the Great Migration?
It's a Chef Boyardee dish. So we were already in
Right,
New
I
York.
know.
We were in Chicago.
I mean,
We
dude,
were
if you want to ignore
in
facts, then
no, no,
like I
no,
said, I think
no.
you're an
You're
interesting
babbling.
guy and you have a
You're,
great way.
you're babbling. Stop it. And stop with the tough guy. I hate when a lot of y'all be trying to act like that. Yo, it's tough. Yeah, man, your whiteness protects you. You guys are weenies. You're a goddamn weenie. Your whiteness protects you. You fall into the system of white supremacy. You're not fucking tough. Black people, foundational Black Americans, we're tough because we have to go against the militarized government. That's tough. We're less than 12% of the population, and we don't have the cloak of whiteness to help us out. When we feel injustice, we don't get on a boat with $3 and flee like bitches. We stand here and stand strong and fight against oppression. And you could never be that.
You fled you ran away from the
Ah,
South.
stop with that. Stop. And then why are there so many black people in the South still? There's plenty of black people in the South.
Yeah, I know, but there was a great migration and they ran away from
And
it. And
black
when you
people,
talk about fighting the
stop,
government, nobody.
stop all that. Black people are still in the South, and there were black people who never left. You acting like black people just bounced away from the South. There's some who went to the North because this is our country. And many black people and most black people stayed in the South. They didn't run. If we want to talk about fleeing, we stayed in the South. So what you talking about?
Well, yeah, because it's not as bad as you make it out to be. That's why. So, but the reality is that listen,
But your home,
if if white people didn't form this nation, if we get taken over by China tomorrow or the Middle East, nobody gives a fuck about what you're saying right now, bro. So you should be fucking worshiping white people right now because we're actually listening to you and fucking, making things happen for black people. Let fucking China take over. You think they're gonna give a fuck what you have to say right now? Dude, foundational black, they don't give a fuck.
but if it weren't for us building the nation for free, you would be in Europe somewhere with head lice eating potatoes.
Like I said, you want to make a comedy show, make a comedy show. The reality is that
Talking real.
Italian Americans.
Let's no. Let's talk real. I'm talking real. If it weren't for us, you would still be over there in Italy somewhere cannibalizing each other, which is what they were doing here. Let's be clear. They were over here cannibalizing each other. Your ancestors, they were coming over here when they start starving. They just started eating each other. That happened in Virginia, North Carolina, down in in Florida when they tried to set up a colony down there. They didn't know how to create an agrarian society on their own. So they looked at the next guy and said, "Hey, nigga, you look tasty." Even when they went out west, sir, we know about the Dharma Party and all those people, the Dorn, whatever the name is, the Dharma Party. But when they were going west, they were getting stuck out there and saying, "Hey, well, shit, there's no food, but you look like a snack." Well, oh, thank you. No, bitch, you look like a real snack. And they started eating each other. That's your history, sir.
I mean, look, Tariq, I respect your hustle, like I said. So, but that story
I'm
has
talking
no
history.
relevance to what we're talking about right
We're
now.
talking history because you're
But
talking
you're
about
deflecting.
you're talking about what we should be thankful to you, and when we're not around, y'all start cannibalizing each other, and we should be thankful. When black folks aren't around, y'all get all types of diseases over there in Europe and start falling out, and your arms and asses is falling off, and we got to be thankful to you. Really?
What I just said was that it was white people that started this country, that started this whole process. So if we get taken over by China tomorrow or any other country, nobody gives a fuck about what you're saying. It's this country that allows you to say what you're saying because we fight for you. We
No,
go to war against
beef,
other countries. We fight for this. You
sir.
keep talking about white supremacy like it's not as something that it's not what it is. You're
Okay,
talking about white people. You
okay.
say, "Oh, because I see people."
Wait, stop your goddamn babbling. Is there white supremacy or not? Because your white forefathers said there was white supremacy. Why did they say that?
Yes, the KKK organization.
And no, no, Thomas Jefferson, the people in the Confederate, it wasn't the KKK. It was the top white people, the Andrew Jacksons. These people were using terms like white supremacy, even in the Taney Supreme Court decision. They were using terms like white supremacy, black inferiority in documents. Why did they use those terms? These are not some fringe groups. We're talking about leaders here and documents in the Supreme Court. Why did they use the term white supremacy then?
Because at that moment in time, which was hundreds of years ago, that was the perception at that
Oh,
particular time. The same
so
way that you think you're superior now to
so
African immigrants.
so when see you're not going to troll. So when did they stop practicing white supremacy? What year, sir?
First of all, there was plenty of founding fathers that were not only against slavery, but they didn't own any slaves.
Stop. I said white supremacy. Abraham Lincoln didn't own slaves, but he believed in the supremacy of the white race. So when did they stop practicing white supremacy?
Do you believe in just the concept?
I asked your silly ass a question, and I want you to answer, and I'm not going to allow you to deflect. What year? Because you've acknowledged that white supremacy was established. So I'm going to ask you, what year did they stop practicing white supremacy systematically in this country? Let's try it again, sir.
Well,
One more
you're
time.
mixing and matching all these different things. You tell me, because I need you to clarify your point. You tell me who said this term white supremacy and who said black inferiority. Who said that?
Sir,
No, you said something.
um,
Let's get specific. Who said it?
Thomas Jefferson has a book called Letters.
Okay, guess what? Not everybody
Okay,
agreed with Thomas Jefferson.
okay.
Okay?
So,
That's what makes this country unique.
but
Other white people fought.
they did agree with him because they elected him president and they still worship him and he's still on currency to this day. So they do accept him. What are you talking about?
I said that there were other Americans at the time. He was a president for however long he was president, then he was gone. There were other ideas that came after him. And there was also, he's a complicated person. There's also things that he did that were valuable to you.
Abraham Lincoln, sir, said he believed the supremacy of the white race. If you want to Google that right now, you can look that up now. The Supreme Court decision, Taney versus Dred Scott, or the Judge Taney, the Dred Scott decision. You can look that up now and find out what they said about white supremacy and black inferiority. This is a document that's on record.
Right. But the Italian immigrants and the Jewish immigrants and the Irish immigrants that were treated like shit helped to fight for you. And that's what helped the movement begin of.
You've never fought for foundational black Americans. The only thing Italians did for foundational black Americans was put drugs in our community and take the numbers racket from the black people who created it.
They did not take the numbers record. That's ridiculous. There was
Yes, they did.
prohibition in 1920.
They did.
They were the blacks were barely in the cities at that
Yes,
time.
they
They
did.
came to the cities.
They got the numbers racket from black people. This is very well documented. They got the numbers racket from black people. Black people were doing the numbers racket, and the Italians got that from black people. Look up the Jones brothers. Please understand history, sir. This is why you need to learn. If you
We're
don't know,
not talking about a numbers game. Who cares about numbers? That's little
okay,
boy shit.
okay. See, now you're just dancing and dipping and diving. See, this is why if you need to learn history, just sit down and learn history and don't babble. This is why you failed in Italy, sir, because you weren't listening and learning. This is why you had to come flee and eat off us. If you listen and learn, maybe you could have built your country up back home, and you wouldn't have the Colosseum still raggedy and everything toe up over there.
Everybody knows the numbers game is little boy shit. We had gambling. We had gambling houses. We had prohibition. You learned from us.
No, no, we don't want to learn how to be criminals. That's not a good thing. Well, nobody wanted to learn how to be criminals. Black people, for the most part, we tried to walk the straight and narrow for the most part. We didn't want to be degenerates. We're moral people for the most part. We had the civil rights movement. We fought for everybody. Notice everything you brag about in your culture is criminality. Notice that?
You must have missed half of what I said. I talked about labor laws. I talked about
That was controlled by the mafia. Those Teamsters, you've always had a criminal element within your culture. You're talking about labor laws. You're talking about the Teamsters, that Jimmy Hoffa, all of that criminal ass stuff that they were doing. They were running rackets, sir. Everything in the culture you're bragging about is all about scamming, rackets, murder, degenerate behavior. Nah, that's not what we want to be about, sir. And that shows the mentality that you have, sir. That's why you failed in your homeland. See, people who have that criminality type of mindset, they're not going to succeed in their homeland. That's why you had to come around moral people in order to thrive. So you're welcome.
right. Jay Z didn't succeed, right?
Jay Z is a great success in spite of
Right,
system.
right. All the most successful black people, half of them came from the street. What are you talking about?
And that
Okay,
I,
that
I,
was the whole point. Italian American.
I will give you that. But we had to get in the streets based on circumstances. A lot of us were forced into the street game based on systematic deprivation. But we got out and we started doing good for ourselves in spite of systematic white supremacy. You were able to be a criminal because of white supremacy, because of corrupt cops and corrupt judges. So you just had a whole degenerate thing going on all around the board.
No, we knew how to organize and get tough,
You know,
which
you knew how
helped
to be
create
white.
all the things you
You
just.
knew how to use your whiteness. You use your whiteness. You got to pass because the only reason you were able to get away with all of that damn criminality is because of your whiteness. The white supremacist code. That's the only thing. Don't act like you were so tough and you were so this and so that because you didn't do none of it in Italy. You had to come around here to eat off foundational Black Americans and get on the white supremacist code in order to come up. And y'all can dance around that all you want to, but white supremacy is an affirmative action program for people who are classified as white. And you know that. And without that system of white supremacy lifting you up and giving you your daily bread, you would be a complete failure. You would be back over there in Italy eating some ravioli, picking headlights out of your scalp.
Didn't Madam C.J. Walker actually start a business because she had so much fucking dandruff in her head that that's why she became a millionaire?
Great question. You
And you're
know,
talking to me about dandruff, bro? Like,
okay, okay. You know why Madam C.J. Walker's hair was falling out? Because dirty, degenerate white supremacists, after slavery, they were going around the South selling snake oil hair products to black women with all types of harsh chemicals in them. And black women were putting this stuff in their heads, and it was making their hair fall out. So black women like Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker started to go into the woods and go to the root people and get herbs and medicines to create hair grease and hair tonics that would heal their scalps and grow their hair. And these people became millionaires without the help of the white supremacists.
I mean, like I said, you just say whatever I've noticed about you, so you'll just
Everything
say
I
anything.
can Google what I just said, sir.
I have. It's not what it is. She had a
Yeah,
bad scalp problem,
no,
and
because
you talk about things with
because
Italian Americans were.
your white brethren were selling people like her bad hair products. Your degenerate ass family was selling black women harsh chemicals, taking their hair out, sir. So notice everything we find out about your culture is degenerate, sir. You don't help us at all. It's all degenerate. You're talking about you help foundational black Americans, you flood our communities with drugs and heroin. That didn't help us. That was a hindrance to us, sir. And then you want to brag about creating a degenerate cycle within our community? That makes you sound like
No, black people were begging Italians to work with them. I don't know. Again, you have all your facts
a
wrong because you're in a book all the time.
sir. We couldn't work around you because this was during the Jim Crow era. So black people were not really allowed around you guys like that in large numbers. And you guys have always segregated yourself, especially in New York. Those Italian neighborhoods were very segregated. I don't know where you're talking about all of this helping black people. You guys were so segregated from us in Chicago, in New York, and all the other major cities. You went out of your way to segregate yourselves from foundational black Americans. And many of the Italians were attacking black people who just happened to wander in certain towns. So, sir, let's not play that game where you were helping us. You were some of the main people harming us all across the board.
Well, you look at everybody as the same thing. Like that's like me saying that because there's a black fucking person that's got a slave in Africa right now that I should hold you responsible for that because you have the same skin color or the same man.
I don't know where you're going, sir. At this point, you're just doing mayonnaise babble. So, what I'm going to do, sir, I understand you probably have some beef ravioli that you can microwave somewhere. So, go ahead and take you a nice nap, sir. Eat your rice aroni, beef aroni, Chef Boyardee. Eat you a empanada with some ragu sauce, whatever you do. But it's been real. So you have a good night, sir. All right. Okay. All right. So that's that. So how many people in here? Boy, we got a lot of people in here still. Okay. Yeah, this dude came in here trying to talk weird. Trying